Point, click, track. But this is not the police tracking your license plate. It could soon be the federal government, and all without a warrant. Attorney Whitney Boan says this violates the Constitution, but attorney Anna Young disagrees, says it does not. Anna, it seems like it would blatantly violate the Constitution. How does it not?
Well, look, Neil, I think there's definitely privacy interests and privacy concerns when it comes to this issue. But when we're talking about whether the government can conduct legal license plate recognition, I think they possibly can, depending upon what kind of procedural safeguards are in place. I think there has to be limits as to what the government can do. We're not talking about a free-for-all Google search.
Once the government's doing it, there are no such things as limits. They just do it.
Of course, there's arguments that there's a slippery slope and that once the government does it, that it can lead to something else. But as long as there's procedural safeguards, and what I mean by that is that the agents here, the Department of Homeland Security, are requiring their agents to conduct very particularized searches, meaning particularized license plate searches. It has to be within the scope of the statute of limitations. It has to be a specific designated area as opposed to a free-for-all situation. Statute of limitations depending upon the crime.
You're not buying that, Whitney.
No, I'm not buying that at all. The statute of limitations for what? Basically, the only safeguards, quote unquote, that I've heard about with this proposal that the Department of Homeland Security is setting out or trying to implement bids for is that, you know, a law enforcement officer would have to say that somebody is a suspect without having any articulable facts to support that, without having any evidence to support that, without having a judge look at it to be able to determine whether there were any facts to support the idea that someone's a suspect. A statute of limitations.
And who in the government is doing it? Is it the FBI? Is it Homeland Security?
It's the Department of Homeland Security. It's the Department of Homeland Security specifically pertaining to ICE, Immigration, Customs, and Enforcement. And if you think about it, it's no different than law enforcement officers looking at license plate numbers that are in plain view. There's no reasonable expectation of privacy when you're talking about.
If this were being done at the border, the police is sort of stuff, it's one thing. But this seems to be open game in all 50 states, doing quite another.
Open game.
But this is information that's already out there, Neil. This is information that's already out there, and the government is utilizing this when it comes to national security and security
threats.
Well, no one ran
it by me. If they're taking my license plate, if they're doing this, Whitney, no one has run this by me. They're just doing it.
Exactly. And you know what? If you had asked me in 1995 if I could ever believe that in this day and age the government would have the right to know where I spend my money, how I spend my money, who I spend my money with, the content of my telephone conversations, and now they're going to have the right to know when I drive, where I drive, how I drive, I would not have believed it. I would not have believed it. This is outrageous. It's a blatant and flagrant violation of our privacy rights, and it violates the Constitution of the United States. Our founding fathers would have never stood for this.
Final word.
Yeah, but I think there's also I think there's also a difference between what you're talking about in terms of tracking devices, for instance, GPS tracking devices. Supreme Court recently held that GPS tracking devices placed on someone's property is considered a trespass, that's unconstitutional. But when we're talking about license plate recognition,
it's going on as we speak, and we only become aware of it after the fact. I hope I'm wrong, but you know, you never know.
It affects innocent people who are doing nothing wrong. It affects all of us. This is our privacy interests at stake here.
All right,
this is not about terrorism or combating crime. This is about becoming metadata in a database.
All right, you guys each espouse your positions very well. I appreciate it in the meantime.